dealership out there. All right, let's talk a little college football with our good friends. Great new college football podcast that you can find right here on the FanStream Sports Tampa Bay lineup. And it's two former assistant coaches in the state of Florida, USF, UCF. It's Pat and Shane Burnham. Welcome, guys. Been loving your podcast. Appreciate you all joining us. And the crowd goes wild. How are you?
What's going on, JP, man? We're doing good. We're trying to have fun. We're trying to get this podcast thing down. And, it's been fun. We did our 9th episode, taped it about an hour ago. We're going to talk a little bit about Gus Malzahn. We talked with a guy from Auburn that writes for auburnsports.com. We talked to him a little bit about what Gus Malzahn is going to bring to Florida State, Herb Hand, and then broke down the 2025 Auburn Tigers. So we're going to obviously be Florida State. We'd be idiots not to talk about Florida State on a daily basis. We live in Tallahassee. Shane coached for 3 years for Mike. I've covered the program for 6 years. But we're trying to have fun with it, man. It's kind of we're going to talk a little bit about everything. We've had a USF segment. We've had a UCF show. We've had a Miami show. So we're covering the gamut. But I know you want to talk to Shane a little bit.
Good. Well, let's get it. We'll get into that right now. As a matter of fact, Shane, how you doing? Your brother letting you talk at all?
He's always the big brother. Always the big brother, JP.
That's kind of the way that works, huh? Well, it's great to have you both. I've been loving the show, and let's dive right into it with some Florida State talk. I listened to Mike at the ACC kickoff, and I was glad to see him put a sentence together because he didn't do that very often last year. He just seemed really, really off his game, but he seems to be kind of back on his game. What are your thoughts on Norvell heading into this year after that disastrous 2-10 last year?
I'll jump in here. Here's what I think special about Mike, JP. If you go back to Jacksonville State, I'm going to take you back to 2021. It might have been the worst loss in the history of that program.
I remember it well.
Most people do. And the way it went down, it was just so shocking. So my first year on the staff as an analyst, grew up a coach's kid, been around it all my life. I called my dad on the way in that morning. I said, this will be a very interesting staff meeting to see how Coach Norvell handles this. And I called him on the way out of that staff meeting and said, he's the right guy. He has the shoulders for it. Really impressive in that moment through that season. And so fast forward now into 2-10.
Well, if I can't stop you, what about that meeting told you he's the right guy?
Well, I think when you, again, in the football sense, that was so catastrophic for that program and the history of it. And that weight, when there's that big of a program, that many eyes, not just, in the building, even your players, a staff of 60 plus. So we're all looking to see how you're going to respond. I mean, you're the leader of the program, and how you respond tells us everything. So I've seen many men that I've worked with or who have relationships with who cower in that moment, shrink under that pressure. Right. And the fact that he stood tall in that moment, and beyond standing tall, he was convicted in what he was doing. He was convicted in how he was trying to build the program. And it's just really impressive. And whether you're wrong in your convictions or you're right, the fact that he was so convicted, JP, and he was so confident in the plan that he had put together, it was just really impressive. And again, I just think it shakes most people. It would shake most people to their core.
Absolutely. And completely analogous to this moment. Coming off a 2-10 is very similar in a macro way to losing to Jacksonville State. So, Pat, I'll throw it over to you. What have you seen and heard from Mike that tells you he's the man for this moment? Because, again, all eyes and a whole lot of money in this stadium renovation, fans paying a record amount for tickets in these premium areas. You want to talk about pressure. You can't do 2-10 again, even if the buyout's going to be still $50 million. You can't survive that. So going into this season, how do you think he reacts?
Well, listen, he addressed what he needed to address right away. Clearly, the players from last year's team were not responding to whatever was happening on the practice field, in the meeting rooms. So he did what you had to do. He got rid of half his staff, brought in 6 new full-time assistants. And listen, that had to be a hard move for him, JP and Shane, because those guys helped him have a 10-3 season and a 13-1 season. And listen, we could get into all. We can get
13-0 on this program, Pat. I'm sorry.
I know.
We don't say 13-1. Just on this program, you can do that on your program, but on this program, it will always be 13-0. Please continue.
So let's stop giving him credit for Division I AA wins. Then, all right. Let's. I mean, come on, what are we doing here? It was they were 13-1. But he pulled the trigger. I remember talking to. He pulled the trigger on the coaching staff.
Yep.
Listen, you saw some flaws on the offensive line long before the bottom fell out. I think he upgraded his staff, so he's taken the play calling off his own plate, giving it over to one of the brightest minds in college football seen in some time in Gus Malzahn. I do think, and nothing against Alex Atkins, and I mean that sincerely, but Herb Hand's a upgrade at offensive line. He's a more experienced coach. His track record has got a proven track record, and it was clear on the defensive side of the ball that they had tuned that staff out. Yep. They were not paying attention to what Adam was saying. They were too talented to be that bad a football team, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. Now the offensive line was awful personnel-wise last year. I don't care who would have been at quarterback. They were going to struggle, and we saw all three quarterbacks struggle. So then they attacked the portal. We'll see if they got it right this year. Everybody thinks they get it right every year in the portal. Right. They did obviously in 2022 and 2023, did not in 2024. The offensive line should be better because of what they did portal-wise and coaching-wise. But I think he addressed what needed to be addressed as quickly as he could after what was obviously an historically bad season for Florida State.
Yeah. Now, Shane, obviously you're not able to see practice, but you have your sources. So what have we learned?
Talked about this.
What have we learned, if anything, about what this team can do? Have you seen a scrimmage? I don't know. What are you allowed to see?
All right. I've seen nothing. My information, the only thing I hear about is from some of the players that I still communicate with, which in today's portal time, even those guys are fewer and fewer than you would think.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I think Tony's defense, they're not going to be as good up front as they have been the last couple of years. In my opinion, from a personnel standpoint, they're not going to be as good. Breaking in really an entire new secondary outside of Shaheem Brown, so a lot of youth back there. But I think what Tony's going to do, JP is going to play well. You got big, aggressive athletes at Florida State. You can always recruit there. They have one of the best classes coming off a 2-10 season, to drive that point home. So I think they'll play a lot more vision coverage on defense. I think you'll see a much more multiple package where they're going to be really aggressive in how they attack people with blitzes and movement. So a 180 on the defensive side of the ball, but I think it allows, again, you get big, fast guys. Let's turn them loose and let them play. And then offensively, Gus, just always, no matter where he's been, UCF, Auburn is the head coach before that, really unique with that offense. It's RPO-based, quarterback run-based, and I think it allows Mike to go and in today's portal era, you need to be able to manage your roster better than ever, more than ever. Right. I think that's a need for a head coach to be able to have freedom to do that. So I think those three things, hopefully Tony and that scheme, having Gus to run the offense and all the success he's had, frees Mike up to do what head coaches probably need to do more than ever.
All right, both of you, give me in 15 seconds a record for Florida State. Give me your prediction. Pat, we'll start with you.
7-5.
7-5. The over-under, I think, is 6.5. So you're going at least over the – okay, 7-5. All right. Shane?
I'm going to go 8-4. I just believe the roster is going to be better than all but 4 teams they play, in my opinion. So I'm going to trust the staff and say that there's a bad taste in their mouth. 8-4.
I think depth is going to be the issue at the end of the day. I think that's why they won't get to 8.
Depth, yeah.
Yep.
God, what's funny? I'm sitting there going, okay, that's all right. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's not even close to all right at Florida State, but it's a step in the right direction.
What's interesting, we go 10-3, and I remember having this conversation with a former player. He grabs me after the bowl game. It might have been Oklahoma, I guess, in the Cheez-It Bowl, or out in the parking lot or in the hotel afterwards. And he said, they realize this is the standard 10, right? So I said, yeah, I think they understand where they're coaching. But to your point, it's a high bar here. So it's,
the resources and the money we put into it. 8 wins isn't good enough, but hopefully you're building something. And speaking of building, there was the past recruiting class pretty good, and this one coming in, Pat, what do you think?
Well, I think they've done an excellent job, particularly coming off it. I think they closed well with this last class. When you flip Usman Kroma on the National Signing Day and Shamar Onu, they flipped them both that signing day morning. So they've shown the ability to recruit despite the bad taste in the mouth and the way it reflected on the program. And we had Charles Fishbein on our show Wednesday, and he thinks it's right now it's lining up to be Mike's first or second best class that he's had going in year 6. So I think they're doing well. Listen, obviously, as we all know, sitting here on this show, what happens on the field this season is going to impact whether he's able to keep that class intact.
Yeah, absolutely. Chroma going to play this year? Uzma? What do you think?
Listen, I don't know, man. I mean, they're putting out videos of him. Everybody's going crazy over it. He's going to have a chance to play, but they brought in Sawchuk to be the starter from Oklahoma. Right. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Gus does not have a track record of rotating like Mike and David Johnson do. But good. Yes, I think he's going to get a shot. They spent a lot of money on that kid.
It feels like a much bigger type of back than Mike has recruited to that system, and I think Gus prefers that size back.
All right, interesting. Going to have fun with that. All right, let's skip over to USF, guys, which you both are very much in tune with. And, clearly Alex Golish has him going in the right direction. 14 wins in the last couple of years, 2 bowl wins. The Hawaii win was absolutely incredible, Hawaii Bowl win. We had him on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he talks very much about, listen, we're not going to put a number on the wins or anything. That we're going to stick to our process, and it's all about process. And with the wins come, the wins come. And I think that's the right way to look at it. I mean, so much of the media is saying, including myself, and I asked him this directly, like, okay, this is the year you got to win the conference, right? You got to win the conference. He's like, we'll see. And I think that's the right approach, right? How can they do it this year? Can they finally win a conference championship?
I think they can. Listen, you look at that schedule, it's brutal to start. You got Boise State at home, presumptive number 1 in the Mountain West. Then they're at Miami and at Florida, or at Florida and at Miami. So those 3 games. So, but when you look at it's American Conference, right? They changed the conference
American.
Name. It's just the American. All right. Yes. When you look at that American Conference schedule, if you take what the preseason polls, the media did, and put stock in them if you want, don't if you don't. But you've got Memphis and UTSA. They're the only 2 programs they play that are ranked higher than them in the American preseason media conference poll. They play Charlotte, Navy, UAB, North Texas, FAU, and Rice. They should win all those 5 games, right? Those 6 games.
Yes.
So the key games to me are Memphis and UTSA. So the big thing to me is, coming out of September, out of that Florida, Miami, Boise State run, and they play South Carolina State in the middle of those guys. How healthy are they? Have they gotten beat up? What kind of mindset do they have coming out of those games? Can they get it upset? If they don't, if it goes chalk and they lose those 3 games, they're going to be underdogs in all 3. How do they respond? And what are the optics of those games? And Shane will tell you, even in a loss, you can still build confidence depending on how you play. So I think how, if they can get Boise State and go into Miami and Florida with some confidence, but I think they've got a chance to win the American this year.
I think you look at the way they played Alabama probably the last couple of years as a indicator pad of confidence through a loss. I think process driven is the way to go. Most of these kids, JP, can't see past Friday night. Just like you and I couldn't. So I think if you can try not to ride that roller coaster, especially with social media and the way that people can get to your kids now. I was with Alex for a year at UCF and Heupels last year. Extremely organized, extremely hardworking. I think he does a great job. You can out-recruit people still, which what I mean is you can out-evaluate people. You can out-relationship people. That's still a thing. And I think Alex and he and I are really different people. And but I tell you, I have a lot of respect for how he does that. So, and I think USF has always been a great job because you have athletes. And when you go play those guys, there's speed on the edge, there's speed on defense. So I'm really excited for him because the quarterback's healthy. And when that kid's healthy, that offense is a bear, man. That's up tempo and they run the ball.
Is so good.
So I think the quarterback back, it'll be a fun year for those guys. I agree with Pat. It's, those UTSA, huge game for them in Memphis, obviously.
Listen, I can't. I don't think they've ever won a conference. I know we did in the 7 years I was there.
No,
there were several
they've never won a conference.
We should have closed the deal, and we did not.
Yep.
And So listen, I'm looking forward to it. I wish they'd get one. I really have a lot of appreciation for my time at USF in Tampa, and I've always been a fan. I've even got USF gear in the closet still. So I hope they get it, and I think they got a good shot.
Yeah, I was, as somebody posted yesterday, the highlights of the 2017 UCF USF game, which was which I was at. It was I think it's the only game I've ever been at the Bounce House, and it was one of the greatest football games I've ever seen in my life. And the finish was insane. And I wish we still, had that rivalry. Number one, it's got to return at some point. But it's a good segue to UCF and where they're going. Scott Frost is back there. Where they obviously he had that historic run. What is going on at UCF? Where do you see these guys? Shane, start.
Pat, I'll jump in. I thought, and I was not surprised, the transition to the Big 12. If you look at Houston when they came in, BYU, Cincinnati, and UCF, all four teams come in. I think there was one winning record in that group. SMU last year really surprised me as they transitioned, but they killed it in the portal. If you go back and get
and the ACC was down.
And so to me, that's where the biggest fall off was, right? The line of scrimmage, which is, again, no surprise. You got to build depth and you got to get bigger and stronger than you were able to recruit to probably in the group of five. So whether it's Sean Clark on the offensive line trying to fix that or Kenny up front on defense, they've got to get better there first. Then secondly, quarterback, when they've been good at UCF over the years, whether it's Dante, whether it's McKenzie, whether it's Dylan Gabriel, when they've had success at quarterback, I don't think they've had a lot of success the last couple of years with Gus. And with KZ coming back, it's fun to watch him coach and what he can get out of those kids. So I think the line of scrimmage has got to get fixed first, and they got to go find a quarterback.
Pat, your thoughts on UCF?
Yeah, listen, the breath of fresh air with Scott Frost being the head coach there. I think that's got the fan base excited because they all obviously remembered his last year, whether 13-1, something like that. They had a great season. They start off. Yeah, they undefeated. Okay, they start off.
Auburn in the Peach Bowl. That's right.
Yep. Yeah, should get Jacksonville State. Should get NCA&T to start the season off. Although we know about Jacksonville State here in Tallahassee.
Yep.
Just when you don't underestimate the Gamecocks, baby. So get off to a 2-0 start. Bring Bill Belichick into town at the Bounce House for Game 3, and then got Kansas State on the road in September. But listen, we talked to Adam Eaton from Sons of UCF last week, and I think the issue that we got right now is they don't know who the quarterback's going to be. It has not been decided. We talked a little bit about Adam about the challenges on the line of scrimmage for them and making the move to the Big 12. And so I got him right. I think a 500 season would be great for UCF in Scott's first year. If they get the bowl, great. But listen, you got Kansas State. They're going to be good. West Virginia will be better and tougher under Rich Rod. Houston's going to, they're making a move forward with their new head coach. And but towards you got Texas Tech making a move in every possible way.
Big time.
But yeah, so the schedule, I think, for his first year is going to be difficult. An improving Baylor, solid BYU team. I think 6-6 would be great for UCF this year.
I'll say this: you couldn't have come in to the Big 12, in my opinion, at a worse time for UCF. What I mean is, I think had they come in a couple years prior, where they're getting, obviously the full share is not there with the conference payout, and then everybody weaponizing their NIL when UCF's still a young program trying to play catch up. So I wish they could either got into a conference a couple years ahead of time where they'd have a full share to work with, or, if it happened after the fact. But they're behind the 8 ball right now from that point of view.
We're doing previews around the state of Florida with the Burnham brothers. That's Pat on my left or right. I don't know, depending on how you're watching this. That's Pat. That's Shane. Both assistant coaches, longtime assistant coaches and players in college football. It's a great new show. And they know Florida football better than anybody. So let's transition to the Florida Gators. An unbelievable murderer's row schedule again. 2 years in a row, the toughest schedule in the nation. And I thought Napier, and I was one of the few that was telling these Gator fans that wanted him out. I said, give the guy time, give him some time. And I think he proved me right at the end of the season. I thought they played some incredibly inspired football down the stretch. And I expect them to be a very good team this year. They win 7-8 games. It's going to be a very, very good year for them, but I still feel like Florida fans don't think that's enough. But I think the talent is there. Let's start with you, Shane, on Florida. It starts with DJ Lagway actually being healthy.
Yeah, huge, right? And I know everybody's worried about that, whether it's the ankle, the shoulder, whatever it's been. Huge for that program, special athlete. And I think Billy does not get enough credit, JP, to me, and the way that he runs that, not only the program, the offense. You go back, Graham Mertz, that kid was a really good football player who got hurt, and I think Graham will end up playing in the NFL. I really do. I think he'll come back and have a career, but how DJ goes is how they go. I don't think there's many people who probably, in my opinion, do a much better job on offense than Billy. They're different. They're under center. They turn their back, and it's play action. They're in the gun. They're in these condensed sets like the Rams. He just does a really good job with motion. So I think with the quarterback healthy this year, because, again, they were DJ last year and Graham Mertz with what he happened, I think got a chance. The skill, Eugene, some of the guys they have at the skill, they're always going to have good skill. He's done a good job recruiting there at tailback and out wide. And then defensively, I think they're better. They're improving. Still weren't there last year, but they got better. And it was definitely a sea change from 2023 and how they played on defense when it couldn't get any worse. So trending the right direction, but man, what a tough schedule.
Pat, your thoughts on the Gators?
Well, I was with you, JP, last year. We had a lot of talk in Tallahassee about, hey, he's going to get fired in the middle of the year. He'll never see out the year. And I told our guys, you're wrong. He's a good football coach. He'll figure out a way to get it done, and that's what he did. Listen, the head coach at Florida is going to be under constant pressure, just like most of these head coaches. Is he going to live up to expectations this year? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know what the expectations are. I know all fan bases want to go undefeated in the era of super conferences. That's going to become less and less likely, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think the SEC has been as wide open. I think it's more wide open this year than it has before. We talked about this earlier. I think any one of 6 or 7 teams could win the SEC. Now, I do like Billy Napier. I don't know why people do not like Billy Napier. He seems like a good guy. I'm not going to dislike him just because he's coaches at Florida, right? He is a little bit different. Shane talked about what he does offensively. But this is a team that if they went 10-2, it wouldn't surprise me. And with this schedule, if they went 6-6, it wouldn't surprise me. I think it's going to turn. I mean, when you play the schedule that these guys are playing, they got Miami on the schedule again this year, and what we think is an improving USF team. And, so they've got some challenges. The week in and week out of this league is hard. I don't care what you say. I don't care who you are. Yeah. Shane and I have talked about it. That SEC schedule year in and year out is hard. Now, it's deeper from year. Maybe the league's deeper one year than it is the next. But listen, Lagway's a special talent. They always have guys on defense at Florida, right? I think they're getting a lot of preseason adulation. A lot of people think they're a college football playoff team. How does this team handle those expectations? But I anywhere from 6-6 to 10-2, would not surprise me with Florida. And
I always think it's still one of the toughest home for a visitor, a home environment to play there. So
it's great home field advantage. You and I talked about that a long time. We weren't doing a show or anything. We were just talking about recruiting. Shane was at Florida State, and I said to him, I'd gone to Florida to cover a game. And I was like, when you walk into that stadium, and it's crazy. I mean, the fans are right on top of you. It's always wild. It is one of the better home field advantages in college football, I think.
All right, real quick, let's finish up with Miami. Obviously, they've got a new quarterback in Carson Beck. I was watching Cam Ward yesterday in a Titans uniform. Damn, he's even better than I thought he was. So losing him is a big, big hit. Carson Beck, I'm not sure how you guys feel about him. I just think he's kind of average. But I know they've got a really good offensive line. To me, they're a lot like some other programs I know. It's the head coach that really, I think, holds them back in a lot of ways, their coaching staff and Cristobal. Where do you think Miami is at this point? Shane, we'll start with you. Sorry.
I think they've done the best job in the ACC since when I was there from 21 to now, recruiting the line of scrimmage for whatever year Mario is in now. They have done the best job recruiting and developing both offensive line and defensive line. I think they're back. They're stacked this year. They've got, the majority of their pieces back on both sides of the ball. They took a transfer named David Blay from Louisiana Tech, who many people don't know about, but I think he is just going to be a disruptive force inside and one of the best tackles in the portal. So the rich got richer. The quarterback, we prepared for Carson when I was at Florida State. if I remember correctly, for the Orange Bowl in 23. We
Mhm.
watched him, had 12 games of tape. I think he's sneaky athletic. Obviously he was surrounded by a great cast there. I don't know exactly what happened at UGA last year, but I think he's sneaky athletic, and he's played so much football. That always benefits you, as you might have seen here at Florida State last year at that position. But I do like the fact that he's comes out of that program with those snaps. So I think they're going to be really good again. And just like we talked about skill, always got good skill there, right? I mean, you tell me a team at Miami that can't run on the edges or on defense. I think it's going to be Mario's best team.
Okay. Pat, what do you got?
Listen, I'm not as optimistic as Shane is. They start off with Notre Dame, and they got Florida in the first month. Now, obviously, none of those are conference games, so it doesn't do anything from an ACC standpoint.
Both at home, right?
Both at home. That's right. They got they only play 4 road games. They got eight in Miami. So the schedule works in their favor. Listen, they've done Shane said they've done a great job building the offensive line, defensive line. I think that's where their strengths are. They've got multiple draft picks on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Was Carson Beck one of the reasons Georgia was so successful, or was Carson Beck successful because University of Georgia was so good? We'll get that answered for you, JP. Now, listen, they lost 5 of their top. They lost 5 top receivers from last year. What will the passing game look like? Are those guys dependable? Sure, they found guys with speed, and you got Josiah Trader and guys like that they signed that are still with the program. I'm not sure they're going to be as good as they were last year.
Okay. All right, guys, great stuff. And we can listen to your podcast, and you can find it at FanStream Sports Tampa Bay on YouTube. Tell us where else we can find it and when you guys drop your podcast.
Yeah, we're going to drop our new one at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and we brought in Justin Hokanson from auburnsports.com to talk Gus Malzahn and then look at the Auburn Tigers for 2025. But you can find us at the Burnham Brothers College Football Channel on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter. All our shows are shown on Twitter, and mine is at PatB5153. So you can watch us there. Then obviously on my Facebook page at Patrick Burnham.
All right, guys, great stuff. I really appreciate you jumping on. We'll be talking to you all year long. Incredible information and a really fun show. So go check them out at all those places. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, JP. Appreciate it, bud.
Thanks, JP.